It's another Monday, another start to the week, same old shit. I'm Ethan Miller, 32, just another graphic designer trying to make a living in Boston. My life, if I had to sum it up, it's a perfectly flat line. Studio apartment, then my small studio downtown, then back home. Repeat, day in, day out. No surprises, no drama, just existence. And honestly, that's how I like it. I steer clear of crowded places like they're carrying the plague, especially subway stations. There's something about the underground, the sheer press of bodies, the stale air mixed with that metallic, damp smell. I always tell myself it's the noise, the claustrophobia that gets to me. But deep down, I know it's not really that. It's that feeling, the one that crawls up your spine and makes your guts twist into knots. 5 years, 5 damn years, and the memory of Central Station still sits in my head like a rotten tooth. A quick, sharp pang every now and then. One minute, it was just another rush hour. People pushing, trains screeching in, the usual chaos. Then, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Every sound just vanished. Poof, gone. And everyone, every single person on that platform just stood there, frozen, like someone hit the pause button on the entire world. Their eyes, they just stared straight ahead, blank, wax figures. It couldn't have lasted more than a few seconds, I swear. Then, whoosh, everything came back. The noise, the movement, the smell of burnt metal. Like a glitch in the Matrix, right? Yeah, a glitch. That's what I've been telling myself all this time. Just a hiccup in my brain, a stressful hallucination, a collective freakout everyone forgot. Nothing supernatural, nothing real. Just my brain being a dick. But the fragments, those blurred images, they still linger, dancing at the edges of my vision when I'm alone in the dark. It's like a scratch that won't heal. You know it's there, you try to ignore it, but sometimes you just want to claw at it. Today, though, the universe seemed to have a different plan for my carefully constructed bubble of normalcy. I was stuck in my studio, hunched over my Wacom tablet, trying to breathe life into a goddamn corporate logo. This new client, Boston Heritage Preservation Society, wanted something modern yet respectful of Boston's deep roots. Bullshit marketing jargon. It meant endless revisions and me wanting to punch my screen. The project files were a nightmare too. Old photos of historical buildings, blueprints from the early 1900s, and guess what building was heavily featured? Central Station. Of course. Just my luck. Fuck me, I muttered under my breath, squinting at a faded photo of the station's grand entrance. The details were so intricate, so enduring. They just don't build things like that anymore. And this project, it needed me to actually go near the area. Not inside, thank God, but still close enough to make my stomach churn. Me gib vid din, I sighed, running a hand through my already messy hair. A man gotta eat, right? Even if it means rubbing shoulders with ghosts of memories I'd rather keep buried 6 feet deep. The next morning, I braced myself, grabbed my coffee, and headed out. The usual Boston bustle was already in full swing. Cabs honking, people rushing, that distinct city smell of exhaust and cheap coffee. As I walked, trying to keep my eyes glued to my phone screen, anything to avoid making eye contact with strangers, I caught a glimpse of a weathered poster tacked to a lamppost. Rediscover Boston's architectural marvels. Big, bold letters. And right there, dominating the image, was the familiar, imposing facade of Central Station. A cold shiver, fast and sharp, shot down my spine. My whole body seized for a microsecond, like someone had just poured a bucket of ice water down my back. My breath hitched. I immediately wrenched my head away, pretending I hadn't seen it, hadn't felt that familiar dread prickling at my skin. Just another old building, Ethan. Get a grip. It's just an old building. I walked faster, my heart thumping a little harder than usual, a tiny bead of sweat tracing a path down my temple, even though the morning was cool. Stupid brain, always playing tricks. That evening, after another soul-crushing day of revisions, I was back in my studio apartment, sprawled on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through Reddit. Pictures of cats, conspiracy theories about aliens, recipe videos, anything to turn off my brain. I bounced from one subreddit to another, half reading, half glossing over. And then, there it was, a small, obscure forum, Boston Urban Legends and Local Lore. It had maybe 100 members, tops, mostly just people sharing weird stuff their grandparents told them. Most of it was harmless ghost stories, old wives' tales, but one thread caught my eye. The title was unassuming, almost bland. Những khoảnh khắc ngừng động ở các công trình cổ. My thumb froze. Moments of stillness in old structures. I scoffed out loud. Mấy thằng cha rảnh rỗi bày trò, I mumbled, rolling my eyes. Probably some teenagers trying to spook each other. Still, my finger hovered, a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor running through it. Curiosity, or maybe something else, something deeper, pulled me in. I clicked. The thread was short, mostly speculative comments about old theaters and abandoned warehouses. Nothing about Central Station. My shoulders slumped, a mix of relief and something else. Disappointment? I didn't know. I closed the tab, convinced myself it was stupid. I was working late again, trying to perfect a gradient that just wouldn't cooperate. The only sound in the apartment was the soft hum of my computer and the gentle drizzle against my window. Then, without warning, my screen flickered, violently. A sharp, jarring flash of static, then it went completely black. My heart leaped into my throat. Just for a second, a single agonizing second, the room plunged into an eerie darkness, save for the faint glow of the city lights outside. My breath caught. Then, pop, it was back. The same half-finished logo, the same stupid gradient, as if nothing had happened. Mẹ kiếp, đến lượt tống cổ cái máy này đi rồi, I cursed, shaking my head. It was old, sure, but this felt off, like a bad omen. I tried to focus, but the image of the black screen, that momentary void, lingered. I needed coffee, strong, black, and hot enough to burn away the creeping unease. I walked into the kitchen, the familiar clatter of my steps the only sound. As I reached for the coffee maker, the overhead light fixture above the counter started going insane. It wasn't just flickering on and off. No, this was different. It was flashing, rapid, continuous flashes, a strobe light on steroids. It was so fast, so relentless, it distorted everything around me. The kitchen cabinets seemed to stretch and shrink, the ceramic tiles on the floor seemed to ripple. The whole damn room was warping, slowing down and speeding up in quick, unsettling bursts. Like everything was playing a fucked-up highlight reel, all at once. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze, my hand still outstretched towards the coffee. My eyes tried to make sense of the visual assault, but it was too much. The world felt like it was tearing itself apart, stitching itself back together in milliseconds. And then it hit me. That feeling. That cold, helpless, gut-wrenching feeling from 5 years ago. The coffee mug, still empty, slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. It hit the tiled floor with a loud, sickening twang. Shards of ceramic scattered across the floor, glistening under the frantic, strobing light. My whole body jolted. I jumped back, tripping over my own feet, landing hard against the counter. The light was still flashing, still distorting reality. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even pick up the broken pieces. Thằng nào lấp điện ẩu vậy không biết? I practically screamed, the words catching in my throat. My voice was tight, barely a whisper. But it wasn't just the wiring, was it? It couldn't be. Not after all this time, not after that memory. My mind raced,
trying to find a logical explanation, any explanation, to shove away the rising panic. But the image of the frozen people, the absolute silence, it crashed into me, unbidden, vivid. The light kept flashing, and for a terrifying moment, I saw their blank faces in the shifting shadows, their eyes staring at nothing, staring at me. I stood there, trembling, surrounded by shattered porcelain and a light show from hell, the stench of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the acrid smell of fear. Was I losing it? Was it just stress, like I always told myself? Or was that feeling finally crawling out of the dark, refusing to stay buried? And if it wasn't just me, then what the hell was happening? My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing the air out of my lungs.
I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to make the flashes stop, trying to make the faces disappear. The light pulsed, relentless, and I just wanted to disappear. It's been, 3 days since the kitchen light decided to turn my apartment into a fucked up disco? 3 days of me trying to pretend it was just a bad wiring job, or maybe an old bulb having a seizure. But deep down, I knew. That feeling, it wasn't some random power surge, it was that thing crawling out of the shadows. And I couldn't lie to myself anymore. This wasn't some collective freakout from 5 years ago. This was real, and it was happening to me. My sleep? Gone. Poof, vanished like the sound at Central Station. Every time I closed my eyes, it was the same damn loop. The crowded platform, the trains screeching, then nothing. Absolute, terrifying nothing. Everyone frozen, their blank eyes just staring. And then the rush of sound and movement, like the world just snapped back into place. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart hammering like a trapped bird against my ribs. I kept telling myself I was okay, that I'd buried that shit deep enough. But turns out, some things just don't stay buried. They claw their way back to the surface. And now, they're not just memories. They're a threat, a creeping dread that gets a little tighter around my throat with each passing hour. Monday morning, again, same old grind. I was in my studio, sketching out some concepts for a ridiculously bland coffee shop logo. My headphones were on, blasting some indie rock, trying to drown out the noise of my own head. Suddenly, a tap on my shoulder. It was Mark, another designer, a chill dude, but a bit of a chatterbox. He peeled off his headphones. "Yo, Ethan, you hear that?" he said, leaning over my desk. His eyes were wide, a little too wide for a Monday morning. I frowned, pulling off my own headphones. Hear what? The sweet sound of corporate mediocrity? I tried to joke, but my gut instantly clenched. He shook his head, running a hand through his messy hair. "Nah, man, on the subway this morning, Green Line. The lights, they kept flickering, right? Like rapid fire. And then there was this hum, not the usual train hum. This was lower, deeper, like something big was rumbling under the tracks, you know? And for a second, I swear, everyone just paused, like a broken video. Weird shit." My breath hitched. My hand, still holding the stylus, froze midair. The coffee shop logo on my screen seemed to mock me. Flickering lights, a hum, everyone pausing. He just described my nightmare, the one I've been trying to convince myself wasn't real. Probably just an old train, man," I mumbled, forcing a shrug, trying to sound casual. Too casual. Boston's infrastructure, right? Always on its last legs. Mark just shook his head again, still looking uneasy. "Yeah, maybe, but it was unsettling, made my skin crawl." He shivered. "Anyway, gotta get back to this damn brochure." He clapped me on the shoulder and walked off. I put my headphones back on, but the music was just noise now. My hands were shaking. Fuck, it's starting. It's really, actually starting. Not just in my head anymore. Someone else saw it.
heard it, felt it. The tiny, perfectly crafted bubble I'd built around myself, it just popped. And the air, it felt thin, like I couldn't catch my breath. Later that afternoon, I was walking home. The sky was a dull Boston gray, and the air was thick with the promise of rain. I tried to clear my head, but Mark's words just echoed. Flickering lights, a hum, everyone pausing. Every step I took felt heavy, like I was wading through thick mud. I passed a construction site where they were tearing down an old brick building. Cranes groaned, jackhammers roared, the usual symphony of urban destruction. I didn't even flinch. I was so lost in my own head, it all just blurred into background noise. And then, it happened. Suddenly, the world just went quiet. Not a gradual fade, just a switch flipped, off. The roar of the jackhammers, the groan of the cranes, the distant blare of a car horn, all of it just cut out, gone. The only thing I could hear was the frantic thump, thump, thump of my own heart, hammering against my ribs, loud enough to burst through my ears. My eyes darted around. The construction workers, they were just there, frozen. One guy, mid-swing with a sledgehammer, stood like a statue, arm raised, hammer suspended in the air.
Another, yelling into a phone, had his mouth open, a soundless scream stuck on his lips. Their eyes, just like 5 years ago, blank, staring into nothing. 2 seconds. It felt like an eternity. My lungs burned, air stuck in my throat. I couldn't move, I couldn't even blink, just stood there, watching the world hit pause, again. And then, bam, everything crashed back. The jackhammers, the cranes, the car horns. The worker swung his sledgehammer, the other finished his soundless shout. They moved, oblivious, like nothing had happened, like the universe just skipped a beat. My legs gave out. I stumbled back against a lamppost, cold metal biting into my spine. My hands flew to my mouth, but no sound came out. My entire body was trembling, a raw, uncontrollable shake. My vision swam. Shit, not again. It was real, all of it, not a glitch in my head, a glitch in the world, and I was right in the middle of it. The rain started, cold drops against my hot face, mixing with what I realized were tears. Just cold, primal fear. I bolted home. The apartment felt like a bunker, a fragile shield against whatever the hell was out there. I slammed the door shut, locking it, then locking it again, just for good measure. My fingers fumbled with my laptop, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. I needed answers. No more pretending it was stress, no more telling myself it was a hallucination. This was something else. I typed keywords frantically. Boston subway, strange lights. Old buildings, pause time. Moments of stillness, city. The search results were a mess. Conspiracy theories, ghost blogs, architectural history forums. Most of it was garbage. But then, buried deep in a dusty corner of the internet, an archived forum post from like 2008. The title was something like, Old City Flicker. Anyone else? My heart gave another painful lurch. Flicker. Mark said flickering. My kitchen light, my computer screen. It wasn't a coincidence. I clicked. The thread was old, barely active. A few cryptic posts, mostly people asking if others had seen it too. Central Station, one user wrote, saw it there, just like the old stories. Another mentioned an old opera house downtown. The comments described the same damn thing. Sudden silence, people freezing, then everything restarting. They called it stasis moment, the pause, or the city's breath. No real explanations though, just wild theories, time slip, dimension bleed, a building spirit. One user, who called himself the Archivist, had written a long, rambling post about architectural consciousness and how certain ancient structures had mechanisms to self-correct reality. Sounded like something straight out of a C-grade sci-fi movie. But still, it was something that wasn't just my imagination. It was real. And that thought, it was even scarier than thinking I was losing my mind.
I slammed my laptop shut. My head was pounding. This was too much, too real. I needed to calm down. Just breathe. Maybe a coffee. A real coffee this time, not the one that ended up in shards on my kitchen floor. The next day, I found myself in a coffee shop I'd never been to before. Tucked away on a quiet side street, it was almost cozy. Just a few customers, the low murmur of jazz music playing from hidden speakers, the clink of ceramic cups from the bar. I picked a table by the window, ordered a black coffee, and tried to lose myself in a book. Just a normal person doing normal things. Nothing weird, nothing scary. Yeah, right. I was halfway through a chapter, feeling the warmth of the coffee seeping into my hands, the gentle rhythm of the jazz starting to soothe my frayed nerves. It almost worked. Almost. Then, the big antique wall clock above the bar, the kind with the Roman numerals and a slow, elegant pendulum, it made a loud, distinct click. And the second hand, which had been sweeping gracefully, just stopped. Dead still. The jazz music, gone, mid-note. The barista, wiping down the counter, froze, rag in hand, mid-wipe. Her eyes were glazed over, staring straight ahead, just like the construction workers, just like everyone at Central Station. My heart, which had just started to slow its frantic beat, now lurched, jumping straight into my throat. This was it. Again. But this time it was different. I felt it, a cold, creeping feeling, not just on my skin, but inside me, like something was reaching in, slowly turning a screw. The pause.
It lasted longer this time. Not 2 seconds, not even 3. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 goddamn seconds. And in those 5 seconds, the world was a perfectly rendered still life, except for me. I was breathing, I was seeing, I was observed. From the corner of my eye, a shadow. At first, I thought it was just the dim lighting, or my eyes playing tricks. But no, it was definite. A man, standing just outside the coffee shop, right by the glass window, barely a foot away from my table. He was wearing something like an old-fashioned work jacket, a faded cap, but he wasn't frozen, not like everyone else. His head was tilted, just a fraction, and he was looking at me. Not just looking, staring. His eyes, if he even had them, were fixed on me. A heavy, penetrating stare that went straight through my chest, down to my bones. It wasn't a curious look, it was a patient look, like he was waiting. Or maybe examining me. My blood ran cold. My hands, clutching the book, were slick with sweat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. My feet felt glued to the floor. The chill from before now settled deep in my bones, a terrifying realization blooming in my gut. He wasn't part of the pause. He was outside of it, or worse, he was in control of it. Then, with a sudden, jarring whir, the clock's second hand lurched forward. The jazz music kicked back in, mid-note. The barista finished her wipe, oblivious. The world snapped back into motion, the sounds and movements rushing in like a dam had just broken. The man outside the window, he was gone. No trace. Just the empty sidewalk, reflecting the dull gray light. My coffee mug, still in my trembling hands, clattered against the saucer. I was panting, short, shallow breaths that did nothing to fill my lungs. My entire body was shaking, a full-on tremor that made my teeth chatter. My shirt was plastered to my back with cold sweat. I felt lightheaded, nauseous. Fuck, I'm really losing it. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to make the image of that tilted head, that patient, piercing stare, disappear. It was just a hallucination. It had to be. Just a trick of the light, a figment of my overstressed brain, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe that thing, that force, whatever the hell it wasn't just glitching the world. Maybe it was watching me. And if it was watching, what was it waiting for? What was it going to do? The realization hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the wind out of me. I wasn't just a witness. I was a target. And that thought,
That was far scarier than any nightmare I'd ever had. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not just a little tremor, but a deep, bone-rattling shake that started in my gut and worked its way out. Every shadow in my apartment looked wrong. The fridge hummed, and I swear, it sounded like a low growl. The light in my living room flickered once, just for a split second, and I damn near jumped out of my skin. My heart, it was always racing now, always, like it was trying to outrun something, even when I was just sitting there, staring at the wall. It felt like my brain was running on fumes, trying to process something it wasn't built for. I just needed an explanation, a damn name, something I could point at and say, that's it, that's the monster. Anything. A demon, an alien, a messed up government experiment. Just tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me this isn't all in my head. Because this feeling of not knowing, of my own mind turning against me, it was worse than anything I'd seen, or thought I'd seen. I was teetering, right on the edge. One more push, and I was going to fall. Then my phone buzzed. It was Jake, my oldest friend from college. "Dude, you alive? Haven't seen you crawl out of your cave in days," he started, his voice loud, full of that normal, everyday energy that felt so alien to me right now. "Listen, there's this thing tonight. Sarah's throwing a party. You know, Sarah from our architecture class. Big deal, networking, free food, probably some decent booze. You gotta come. Get out. Clear your head. You've been cooped up too long, man. It's not healthy." I sighed, running a hand over my face. "I don't know, man. Not really feeling it." "No, man, not I don't know. It's a yes. I'm not taking no for an answer," he pushed. "Look, I'll even pick you up. Just shower, put on something that doesn't smell like existential dread, and be ready by 7. Seriously, you need this. Trust me."
He was right. Or he probably thought he was. My head felt like it was going to split open. Maybe some loud music, some superficial chatter, a few drinks, maybe that would drown out the screaming inside my skull, or at least numb it. "Fine," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. 7, don't be late." The party was exactly what I expected. Wall-to-wall people, music pounding, that weird mix of cheap perfume and expensive cologne. Too much noise, too many faces. I grabbed a glass of red wine, took a huge gulp. The warmth in my chest was immediate, a welcome distraction. I plastered on my "I'm a functioning human being" smile and tried to look interested in whatever boring conversation was happening around me. After what felt like an eternity, I found myself leaning against a ridiculously expensive bookshelf, nursing my third glass of wine. My head was starting to feel fuzzy, which was good, less room for the other thoughts. Then, a voice beside me. "Ethan, right? Jake mentioned you'd be here. I'm Sarah." I turned. She was sharp, professional, a dark blazer, a neat bob. She gave me a confident smile. "You're a graphic designer, right? I'm an architect. I actually specialize in historical preservation. Old buildings, you know, giving them a new lease on life." "Oh, cool," I mumbled, trying to sound genuinely interested. My brain was still a bit slow from the wine and the constant background static of my own fear. "Yeah, it's fascinating," she continued, taking a sip of her own drink. "These old structures, they've seen so much, so many stories embedded in their walls. Sometimes you almost feel like they have a personality, their own quirks." My ears perked up. Quirks, old buildings. The alcohol was doing its job, loosening my tongue, pushing me towards that dangerous edge. "Quirks, huh?" I said, trying to make it sound like a light-hearted observation. "Like strange phenomena?" She chuckled, a small, knowing sound. "Oh, absolutely. You hear all sorts of weird stuff. Drafts that shouldn't be there, strange noises. Even, well, some people swear they've seen things. Glitches in the Matrix, almost." My heart gave a little skip. Glitches. This was it. This was my chance. Maybe she knew. Maybe she could give me a normal, scientific explanation, something to cling to. "You know," I started, trying to keep my voice even, "that reminds me,
Something really bizarre happened to me years ago at Central Station. You know, the old one downtown? She nodded, her eyes attentive. Of course, beautiful old building. Yeah, well, I continued, trying to make it sound like a funny, slightly embarrassing anecdote. I was there, waiting for my train, packed, you know, and then, just for a split second, everything just stopped. The sound, the movement, everyone froze, like a really bad lag in a video game. Then it just snapped back. Weirdest thing. Probably just my brain glitching from too much caffeine back then, right? Or like a mass hallucination or something. Pretty wild, huh? I forced a laugh, watching her reaction, hoping she'd just brush it off as a silly story. Sarah just listened, didn't flinch, didn't look surprised. She took another slow sip of her wine, her eyes thoughtful. Then she lowered the glass, a small professional smile playing on her lips. "Oh, the Central Station flicker," she said, her voice perfectly calm, perfectly normal. "Yeah, that's actually a pretty well-known phenomenon. It happens every few years, almost like clockwork. Pretty wild, right?" My stomach dropped. The jazz music, the clinking glasses, the chatter of the party, it all faded into a muffled roar. Flicker. She knew the name. She had a name for it. "It's actually a kind of protective mechanism for the building's old structure," she continued, completely oblivious to the earthquake happening inside my head. "The entire architectural mass temporarily resets itself, like a system reboot. Engineers can't exactly explain why it makes everything go silent and everyone freeze, but it's just a fleeting moment. Harmless, really." She finished with another reassuring smile. Harmless? Harmless? My brain screamed the word. "Me kip konchonai noike quaisivai." I felt a laugh bubble up, harsh and hysterical, but I swallowed it down, my throat burning. Her smile, her calm, professional eyes, they were like daggers, tearing through every single lie I'd told myself for 5 years.
The lies I desperately clung to, the ones that kept me from completely losing it. I remembered the cold dread that seized my spine, the helplessness as time just stopped. The man in the coffee shop, that patient, piercing stare. The flickering lights in my apartment. The pause at the construction site. It wasn't a glitch in my head. It was a glitch in the world, and it was happening more and more often. Not harmless, not fleeting. It was real. All of it. If it wasn't my hallucination, and if it was a real, recurring event, a protective mechanism for a building, then what the hell was really going on during those moments when reality just hit pause? If resetting wasn't just some tech jargon, but a physical event, then what was being reset? And who or what was doing the resetting? The questions hammered in my skull, each one louder than the last, pushing me further down a rabbit hole I didn't want to explore. It was like I was looking at the world through a cracked lens, and suddenly the cracks weren't just in the glass, but in the reality behind it. The sheer, mind-numbing horror of an unexplainable truth, the sudden, bone-deep awareness of how fragile reality really was, washed over me like a cold wave. It hit me hard, knocking the breath clean out of my lungs. I stood there, trapped in the loud, happy chaos of the party, surrounded by laughing, oblivious faces, feeling like I was sinking fast, into some deep, dark hole that had just opened up beneath my feet. My chest felt like it was going to explode, my breathing shallow and ragged. And then that one haunting question echoed in my head, over and over, with no answer. If not that, then what the hell is it? I looked around at all these people, living their lives in this rebooted reality. A cold thought, sharp like a knife, twisted in my gut. Was I the only one who remembered those pause moments? Or were there others who also saw, who also remembered, and were just really, really good at pretending?